And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
NYPD. There's more content. It doesn't end. Well, what's going on, dude? Let's talk about the New York City Council hearing. I mean, are you super impressed? Because I think I was impressed. I'm
New
impressed
York
with the
City,
NYPD.
that's my favorite thing to watch. Honestly, we should start having watch parties for the New York City Council hearing. Everyone just will put it out live. Everybody grab a drink and we just sit back. We'll narrate a little bit and just listen to the comedy show that it is. Honestly, it's just a highlight of incompetence, sheer utter incompetence all the way around. I personally, I think it's great TV. I think it's great entertainment. I love when I see Public Safety Committee of New York City Council hearing. One of my favorite things to watch.
I can't get over it. The part that I'm like flabbergasted by is I wish that you and I had an opportunity to sit for a city council meeting and they would ask us public safety questions. I wouldn't look at a single note. I mean, this is our specialty. I mean, this is our career. This is our profession. I would be laughing. I'm like, your city council, you don't know anything about police work. Go ahead, ask away. I'm going to shine. But once again, somehow the NYPD just gets caught with their pants down. They look ridiculous. They look inadequate. They look inept. And honestly, it's laughable. All I can say is on Instagram, just get me more popcorn because it is entertaining. It's so entertaining. I can't wait to watch it. Like, and some of it I had to watch it again. Like, wait a minute, did they actually just say that? I had to go back. Like, hold on a minute. Did you actually just say that? Like, you're the first deputy commissioner. You are the police commissioner, and you don't know your job. Listen, I'm not saying you have to be the best speaker in the world because there were quite a few people who challenged me and said, listen, you know what? They might not be the greatest speakers. I said, okay, I'll give you that. Not everyone is an honorable speaker, has the silver tongue like Pat Lynch had. I get that. But I do believe that if you're confident and you're confident in your job, you still will be able to get out the information. It will be clear and concise. It may not be eloquent, but it will be genuine and people will see, okay, you know what? This person knows the job. What are your thoughts on that? Because it's just ridiculous.
I agree totally. I mean, I don't think that I'm a great public speaker. I've spoken in public a bunch, and I don't think that I'm great at it when I listen to myself, or even if I listen to a news interview, or if I listen to this podcast or any podcast.
You're being a little modest. You're being modest.
No, I'm serious. I'm serious. I'm not like, I don't think that I'm a great orator. I've heard people that I'm like, wow, this guy's really good. Like, like tracks you in. Like you can't help but listen to them. I don't feel like I have that, but like, I think 100%. I agree with you 100%. Where if you know what you're talking about, you will be confident and it will make sense to people because you had to make it make sense to yourself for you to understand it. And basically, you're just communicating how you understand it to the public. And clearly, numerous people on the NYPD's dais don't have that ability because they probably don't even understand most of what their job is. So they haven't had to really make things make sense of themselves. And just to on the comment where it's like, well, some people aren't great public speakers. I get it. Some people aren't great public speakers, and some people don't take police work very seriously, even though they're in law enforcement. But they shouldn't be sitting on the dais of and being held the title of New York City Police Commissioner, first Deputy Commissioner in the NYPD. They shouldn't hold these titles then.
I mean, listen, it's apparent and it's obvious that we just have a complete inadequate upper echelon of the NYPD at this point. I get it. When it comes to data, things like that, you'll have to refer to your notes. You'll have to have references. I understand that part. If they ask questions that require specific data information, but just a basic nomenclature of your job and you're in the leadership position, ultimately, the police commissioner and the first deputy commissioner, alongside the New York City mayor, should be running the police department. You should know the ins and outs of that department. That's your vision. That's your police department. And if you're struggling to answer questions, that concerns me. That should make the residents of New York City uncomfortable and nervous. So say, wait a minute, if the leaders of the New York City Police Department are uncomfortable with simple questions from city council members that have zero police experience, how can we have the confidence that they will bring this city to prosperity and public safety? I don't see it.
Yeah, and not to just beat up on the New York City Police Department here. Let's just put everything into perspective, right? New York City Council is controlled by socialists. They're controlled by Marxist, privileged children who turned revolutionary Marxists, right? Most of them are children where they like to identify themselves as people of color. But their skin is dark, their skin is all different shades, but these people went to schools that their 1 year in high school is all of your college. 1 year tuition of their high school is worth more than most of your college, $100,000 a year high schools. These people do not know the plight of the working man or the inner city of New York City. It's amazing. So to listen to them too, it's just like I said, it's a highlight in incompetence, because at the other end, the people asking the questions, the people that should be given the oversight, they have no idea what their job is or what they're even talking about. And they really haven't even figured out their own life yet. Most of them live at home with their parents or don't make their own bed. Their lives are complete, utter train wrecks. And then they're asking people who have served a lot of time in the New York City Police Department, but they're not too good at their job. So when you watch the whole thing, it's just a mishmash. It's great TV. That's what it is.
You're right. It's completely entertaining. Right. Let's take into account Lincoln Resliff. I mean, I looked up his bio, and he's never had a real job other than New York City Council and public office. He's never actually had to grind. He's never had a real job. Doesn't have any public service as far as military or anything that has to do with just basics of law enforcement or anything of public service that would put him in danger or harm's way. He's had a pretty cushy life, and to hear the lack of humility, especially the way he treats listen, I and yourself too, both of us, we're extremely critical of the upper echelon of the police department. But at the same token, I do believe that we believe in respect, and we have far more humility. And this guy, Lincoln Resliff, I mean, the way he talks to some of the leadership, it is failed leadership, but just the way he talks to them is absolutely ridiculous. They still have more experience than you do, and they are serving in the police department. The way he speaks to them, the way he's talking down to them, he doesn't talk to them, he talks down to them, is absolutely ridiculous. And I would love to see, we saw a little bit from Chief LePetri, but I would like to see more spine from the NYPD. And I would like to see them say, listen, give us the respect that we earn and deserve, and we will answer your questions. But the way he talks is absolutely absurd. It just shows he has no humility in his life. Absolutely. He's never been humbled. He's had a very cushy life.
He's a child of privilege. He grew up in the bubble provided by the men and women sitting on that dais and the rank and file of the New York City Police Department. He grew up in that bubble of safety when New York City was the safest big city in the world. And he believes, he's one of those people. I remember throughout my career meeting people, teachers, firefighters, anybody, like just regular people, doctors, nurses. We don't even need cops. I was like, yeah, we don't. We should get rid of them. I don't even know. I'll get a different job. And like these people didn't grow up in the city. They don't know. They don't remember what Brooklyn was like, what Times Square was like. I'm like, they have no idea what they're talking. They wouldn't be able to ride the train if they grew up at the time that I grew up in, and you grew up in, Eric. So it's like, I always just laughed about it. I was like, yeah, whatever. But I always thought that bubble would be there, and that bubble is kind of leaving us now. So we played on our last, on one of our last podcasts, we played a clip where the speaker of New York City Council, Adrian Adams, went after the New York City Police Department about John Schell and Kaz Daughtry's tweets. This is the same meeting. This is the fiscal year 2025 executive budget hearing, the Committee on Finance and Public Safety. So they bring the NYPD up. John Schell, Kaz Daughtry, nowhere to be found, even though those tweets were in question. But one thing I forgot to highlight on that show, and I just wanted to bring up here, is city council's there to provide oversight. Justin Brannan had put out a tweet today. Oh, we're just doing our job. None of this is personal. This is all business. We're here to provide oversight. And I was like, no, actually, I totally always disagree with that. I think everything in life is personal. I don't buy that people hide behind that. I feel like, oh, it's just business. I'm like, no, it's not. There's something there. I said, and you know why I'm saying that is because there were plenty of racist tweets, like pure anti-white tweets that have come out of city council in the last 2 years, on top of unprofessional tweets. And there's actually a tweet from Justin Brannan where he's telling someone to F off. And I'm like, now, I'm not a fan of John Shell, and I'm not a fan of Kaz Dorsey. I'm not a fan of them tweeting. But the people that are providing oversight for the NYPD need some more oversight themselves, because if John Shell had posted something racist or told someone to F off, they'd be calling for his head. They would be in an uproar here. But yet there was no investigation done into these city council members. So it's laughable that Adams is calling for an investigation into the NYPD.
Well said, brother. Absolutely. Well said. If you're going to be in oversight, you have that authority. Basically, you're in a leadership position. They're in a leadership position with authority over the police department when it comes to oversight. So you should set the example. Absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly. John Shell's tweets are completely far from stoic. They're far from professional, just an embarrassment for the NYPD. However, if Justin Brannan and the other cohorts of the New York City Council have this oversight, and they're going to be so critical of his tweets, which they should, well, then your tweets should mirror the same professionalism. How can you be critical and correct unprofessionalism when you're unprofessional yourself? So I have a huge problem with that. But the New York City Council, we know, is completely flawed. It's just biased towards the police. And I think they just wait for any opportunity that they have to show their teeth. And I believe that it was this podcast that was the catalyst that gave them the opportunity to propel this movement towards their tweets. I mean, honestly, their initial attacks on us are just completely unprofessional, but I think that you and I handled it in a very stoic manner. And the New York City Council it's just a, oh, I got you moment. And it's not ultimately about correcting and having a better vision for public safety. It's just a gotcha moment because they just have a complete disdain for the police. And that's where I find it problematic, is they're not making these complaints to have a better police department as a learning tool to work together. It's just a gotcha, and just to be punitive. And then I have a problem, even though I'm far from agreement with John Shell, and I do believe he deserves extreme criticism, discipline, and even potential criminal charges. But at the same token, the New York City Council has to carry themselves with professionalism themselves. Otherwise, we can't even take them serious. And that's why I think it's laughable. And you said the same thing. When we watch this hearing, it's entertaining because both sides are absolutely ridiculous. Both sides are unprofessional. Both sides are not making a good point. And if we were there, we would have an opportunity to test their logic, because many of their questions lacked logic. And that's where the police department really misses the mark. It's an opportunity for them to say, hey, you know what? On this particular question, I don't have the exact data on how many officers in the police department are currently trained to handle a mental crisis, to handle persons in need, persons struggling with mental health issues. But what I can tell you is our police officers are highly trained, and vast amount of training that they experience. And hey, listen, it's something that we'll explore. But at the same token, to test their logic. What are your concerns? You're asking this, but what are your concerns with mental health? Do you see the police department not being effective? Because we have some hurdles here. We are handling mental health issues, but we also have this hurdle of the Civilian Complaint Review Board that's created an obstacle from addressing the mental health. I would like the NYPD to fire back by testing their logic.
I don't think that they're gonna. I think that I don't think that they would ever do that. But I do think that they should just be more stoic and a little bit more forceful in the way they want to talk about what the work is that the men and women do. I got a bunch of clips here, so let's start to get through them. So this one I actually like. This is a clip of Jeffrey Madry. Again, I've made the statement numerous times. I think dealing with the public and dealing with politicians, he's probably the best at handling that. Like, he's probably the best communicator at handling that. Again, I know that everybody loves him. I know that people say he's a nice guy, but again, this guy's been shrouded in controversy his entire career. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. If he was white, he would have been removed from the police department probably 10 years ago. But, you know, as the case is, you know, he moved up the ranks. Let's face it, because he's black. Like, that's exactly what it is. Is he a hard worker? Yeah. Has he been in the police department for 30 something years? Absolutely. Does the community like him? Absolutely. But his off-duty conduct and some of his actual conduct on work and some of his decisions have been shrouded in controversy. But again, I gotta say, when he leaves, because the rumor is he will be getting 3/4 at some point, that he's already approved for it. He had just passed a bar. We talked about that he studied at work for it. We believe that he was studying at work, assigned to the police academy. We said how that was wrong, that taxpayer dime is funding this guy to make a chief salary when he was nowhere to be found, and now he had just passed a bar. So at some point, he will be leaving the New York City Police Department, and I actually fear that time. I do. I fear that time. So let's play the clip and then get your thoughts, Eric.
Chief Madry, at our preliminary budget hearing, you testified that when responding to protests, NYPD starts with the lightest touch. Would you classify this response that night as a light touch? Because based on media coverage and the video that your department made and released, this response appeared to start with more than just the lightest touch.
It may appear to you that it was more than the lightest touch, but we're the ones that's walking into danger, into unforeseen dangers. We don't know what's waiting for us. We have to go in there with enough resources, and bringing enough resources also helps de-escalate it. When people see we have enough resources, they usually will back down instead of challenging us. We took enough resources in there. We had to make sure we had ample amount of police officers to make arrests, to clear buildings, to perform any life-saving measures if need be, to talk to people. And I think we did all of that. We did it precisely, and I think we did it as safe as possible.
What do you think about that, Eric?
I believe I give a fair assessment, and I've given assessments on Jeffrey Madry and some things he's done in the past. You know, I've applauded him, and some things he's done, I've been very critical of his issues. I would say honestly, at this point, I do believe that it's time for him to go. I'm going to be honest. I think it's time for him to go. However, since he is in this position, I will say he is the glue that is holding this thing together. This whole upper echelon is hanging by a thread. They're hanging off a cliff, and he's the only thing. He's the one finger that's holding onto that cliff, that's holding everybody on. And I think that they have to let him fall. This whole thing has to fall apart so they see, you know what, we've hit rock bottom and we need an overhaul. However, with his statement, goes back to what I said. You don't have to be the most eloquent speaker, but I believe that his statement was genuine. I believe that his statement came from competence, which led to confidence. And I think that it was well said. He's absolutely right. That was spot on. And that's the part where I said, I believe he tested her logic. He said, it may be a light touch for you, but not for us. So he tested her logic. That's what I'm talking about. That's the only person I believe fired back. He tested her logic because her logic is, what is a light touch? He said, yeah, for you, because you don't have to go in there. It's not a light touch for us. It's a light touch, but for us, we have to go in there and actually face those dangers. He addressed the Dunning-Kruger effect. For her, she doesn't understand it. She's never done police work. So for her, it's much easier than what it is because she never did it. Jeffrey Madry, I believe that his statement was genuine, and you could actually put yourself in his shoes if you were not a police officer. Say, you know what, I can understand what he's saying. And he didn't have to read from a piece of paper because competence breeds confidence, and he was confident answer. For that, I will applaud him on this one. I still believe it's time for him to go. Like I said, he is the glue holding this thing by a string, but it's time to let this string go, and we need a complete overhaul. it's almost as, yes, Jeffrey Mandry is good at these things. He's a great speaker. He's well liked. But it's also, if you had a baseball team and I say, and you had to pick your roster, and you have a guy, he's a fantastic athlete, but he just comes with so many issues that it's problematic to the team. Do you still want him on your team? And that's the way I see Jeffrey Mandry. However, with that being said, great job, and I'm glad you fired back. Thank you.
I think that was a beautiful description of de-escalation. It's probably the only one I've ever heard during any of these hearings from anybody, New York City Council or a member of the New York City Police Department. So I got to give a big kudos to that, right? Show of force is a de-escalation. That is us showing that we're going to overpower you. There's no winning here. So that will eliminate people's ability to want to fight with you. They won't want it. They say, you know what? There's no winning here. There's guys coming from every direction. The police departments everywhere. All right, we're done. We're not revolutionaries anymore. We're going to go back to being college students, or we're going to go back to protesting for transgender rights somewhere else, wherever that is. So I think that it was beautifully said. Reason I played this clip, I thought this clip was important. One thing they comment on throughout this hearing, and obviously this hearing is hours and hours long, so we only clipped out certain parts of it. The video that your department put out, that video was triggering. And that's what I was saying, where they don't understand the immaturity, and their public relations skills are awful. We joke around a lot, but we're a podcast. We're an independent podcast. We're speaking as retired members of the service, now turned civilian, and we're just giving our assessment using our anecdotal experience. Completely different from what any organization should do, whether you're in law enforcement or not, and what Kaz Daughtry's rush to get that video out, it sparked a lot of anger and hate, and you hear it even coming out of them. And I just thought that was a highlight, and like that questioning. This is the line of questioning throughout this entire committee is there is an anti-police rhetoric, complete anti-police. They do not like the NYPD, and they believe the NYPD police is wrong, but they don't tell the NYPD how to do it. They just like to criticize.
That's why I want to go back to what I was saying, and I hope you agree. I would, if I was on that panel, if you and I were both commissioners, I would say that let's just fire back by testing their logic. It's very simple to debunk these questions when you test their logic, and that's why Jeffrey Mandry's response was so eloquent and it was so spot on, because it tested logic. It's a light touch for you, but not for us. I mean, because it doesn't make sense. What do you expect the police department to do when they're going into a building that was taken over? It's about a week long. We have hostages, the radicals. They don't know what they're going into. They're going in there blind. What do you expect? Any normal person would be like, wait a minute. What do you expect the police department to do? So we have to test their logic. That's why I say certain questions, even when Lincoln Wrestler asked the police department with response times, that's a great opportunity again to test his logic. Say, wait a minute. You're asking about response times. We've had more than 2,400 protests in this city. We've had a decline in our police department. We had a mass exodus. You were also part of the defund the police movement, which led to a mass exodus, which led to morale, the legislation. We have an attrition rate that we just can't keep up with. We have legislation that was enacted, the How Many Stops Act, other legislation that has created obstacles from us having response times that we once had. So what is your logic on response times? But that would be a great way for them to fire back. And it's not argumentative, but it's testing logic. And that's what I would want to see. That's what I expect from a confident police department, from leaders that have spine. But they buckle at every opportunity. They buckle because they just don't understand the job. They don't understand these intricacies, these obstacles. Maybe they're not aware of them, because it sure seems like they're not.
I mean, listen, that clip was the best clip of the New York City Police Department, that entire meeting, so I just got to get that out of the way. The rest of the time, the responses are completely pandering. They're completely pandering to the anti-police narrative, and we'll get into that as this time goes. but none highlighted more than when Ed Caban, the leader of the New York City Police Department, the police commissioner, could not say whether he thought John Schell's tweets were appropriate or not. To me, I was like, that's a huge failure right there, because you're basically giving up the ship. I'm not the police commissioner. They did that on their own without me, and I can't comment on it. I don't have an opinion on it. If you're the police commissioner, you're going to be like, nope. Yeah, I think they were fully appropriate, ma'am. I do. And they did it under my authority. That's what a leader does, right? Extreme ownership, right? That's what leadership is, right? They did it under my authority. Whether you wanted them to do it or not, right? Or you'd say, you know what? I agree with you, ma'am. That was completely wrong, and they're never going to do it again. One or the other. But you're going to take lead and ensure I'm in charge of this police department. And he did it. He passed the buck. He let the 40-year-old virgin speak for him.
Well, two things came out of it, right? One, he showed that the police department upper echelon is a complete epic fail. Second, he solidified the question that we've all have inquired. Is he actually the police commissioner for the New York City Police Department? Is he actually in charge? Does he make decisions? And he answered in simplest terms, he answered that question. And to go even further, and I'm not sure if you're going to play that clip. I know you have it. But to go even further, when the city council speaker used sarcasm and pretty much mocked Ed Caban by saying, well, you are the leader of the police department. She mocked it because obviously she thinks the same thing that we all think. He's the most insignificant police commissioner, and the fact that he passed the buck to the lawyer and to the deputy commissioner of legal matters is absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that he passed the buck. I mean, you are the commissioner of the police department. You have the ultimate authority, and I agree with you. At that point, would have been the opportunity to put your hat on, put your big boy pants on, say, you know what? Exactly that. I agree. I agree with the tweet. This is how we're moving forward, or exactly what you said. I found it inappropriate. It's already been corrected. Moving forward, you know what? This is how we'll do things. But take ownership. And that's why I always say small unit leadership breakdown. The buck should stop with the police commissioner. He should say, you know what? John Schell, I'm responsible for John Schell and everyone underneath John Schell. This is how we are going to move forward. The buck stops with me. I have the authority, and these are the intricacies that I implemented. But instead, honestly, and I said it last podcast, he sounded like he was a cop that was getting deposed for a deposition for a civil lawsuit, or he was getting interviewed for a civilian complaint, and he was referring to his legal counsel. I think it was rather embarrassing.
So let's go to the next clip. This one, I think, is of pilot programs. I didn't put these in any order. We'll just talk as they go. So here's the next clip.
It's working.
Oh, you don't hear it?
I didn't hear it all the entire time.
The court order with the
Oh,
monitor.
shit.
But
All right.
we're looking to sort of expand that. Another thing that we're rolling out soon. We
Thought it was
we have
playing.
a Trulio pilot.
No, the whole time
we're
we're
going to
sitting and
be
waiting.
doing, and that involves essentially AI looking at body worn camera feeds to identify problems. It's a pilot, hasn't started yet. We're going to have an impact and use policy that will be going out, a draft one, under the Post Act. So there'll be a lot more information put out to the public about that. But I think that actually has a lot of potential to help with compliance. we've been looking at issues in terms of our car chase policy, and ways to improve that, and to enhance supervisory oversight when it comes to pursuits. And also something else we're working on, we have an early intervention program. We want to do more in terms of incorporating lawsuit data or lawsuits or red flags into that process. We already have, as part of that process, flagging situations in which the law department declines to represent an officer, or there's a lack of indemnification. That's actually required under the court order with the monitor. But we're looking to sort of expand that to try to identify the sort of what would be appropriate red flags to say, okay, given a lawsuit pattern or whatever it may be, this officer should be incorporated into early intervention. We haven't fully landed on how we're going to do that yet, but that's something that's being actively pursued now.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn.
What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, again, more oversight, absolutely ridiculous, just impossible to be a police officer and do intrusive police work. Early intervention, I mean, you have red flags if you get so many CCRBs in a year, and now there's a red flag if you get lawsuits. So if you're out there doing your job and you're getting lawsuits, I mean, what if you're in narcotics and you're just doing search warrants on a weekly basis and you're getting lawsuits for the search warrants that are issued by a judge? Are you going to be on this early intervention list? I think it's absolutely ridiculous. It's another staff of the police department. It's another form of accountability for the police officers, just to curb them from doing intrusive police work. This early intervention, I mean, it sounds like Minority Report. And again, how about the legal bureau, the corporation counsel actually combat these lawsuits instead of putting the police officer on early intervention? You're sending them out to do a job they're paid and trained to do, and you could sue anybody, especially a police officer. Imagine qualified immunity was removed. I think this is absurd.
Yeah, so they're using AI to go through body cameras to look for problems, not look to see what you did right. Just look for problems, right? They're going to revamp the chase policy so that they could hone down on the supervision, so that they could put the onus on the supervisors and on the individual officers who are in the chase to alleviate liability from the New York City Police Department, right? And put the liability and the onus on the people involved in the chase, right? That's what he's talking about there. And then they're going to go after lawsuit, right? They're going to say lawsuit data. Who gets lawsuits? The guys that are the most proactive. The people that go out and do the mission of the New York City Police Department, provide public safety, the public-facing people that are out there on the streets every day. Every single thing was oversight and discipline towards the people out on the street. That whole thing is insane to me.
And what does it also tell us? It's foreshadowing that police officers that are involved in these vehicle chases, police officers that are on this early intervention pilot program red flag, that are identified by AI, are not going to be identified. The only one that gets indemnified in the city is Mayor Eric Adams for a sexual assault case, an allegation of 30 years, somewhat 30 years or more from an off-duty situation, which is completely in opposition to what you should be indemnified for. You know, we've said on a prior podcast, and I've said it again. Police officers should be indemnified for the job that they do. They should be given an extreme amount of leniency, especially when it comes to administrative errors, to be indemnified. You're out there doing your job. It's absolutely ridiculous. You would have to do something so egregious to not get indemnified as have a sexual assault allegation. That is not does not conform with your scope of employment. That's something completely different. You would not be indemnified. The city's trying to wipe their hands with the police officers. So look, John Shell is out there tweeting saying he's defending the cops. Where were his tweets defending the cops with this early intervention program? Because this program puts the cops on the hook. I've been saying it for the longest time. We've met extreme amount of opposition when it comes to vehicle chases. If you're involved in these vehicle chases, you're putting your financial freedom, you're putting your actual freedom on the line. Absolutely. You're putting your civil liability, and you face any chance of incarceration. This is absolutely ridiculous. And the AI thing just completely scares me. I've been talking about AI for over a year now. It scares me. And think, John, exactly what you said. They're looking for problems. And what happens when you look for problems? You find one. You'll find it, right?
Absolutely. You're going to look for, you could look at any 911 call, any stop, any arrest situation, and you could find a million things wrong, right? We're human, we're flawed, situations dynamic. You could always do things better in hindsight. I mean, it goes true for you want to watch a Knicks game right now. They're in the playoffs, they're playing. I could look and I could break down every play and say, you know what? They could have did that and they could have did this and they should have did that. But you're not there. You're not in the moment. You don't know what's going on in his head. You're not tired. You're not breathing heavy. You don't have the adrenaline flowing. I mean, so yeah, we're going to have someone on to come actually talk about this whole push for AI and what AI is going to do to go through these body cameras to identify problems. It's very scary to me. Very scary at what they're going to do. They're going to identify, in my opinion, they're going to look for profiling problems. They're going to look for abuse of authority problems. They're going to look for discourtesy. So again, just more self-generated complaints. What's been going on in CCRB? Complaints go up, 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 up. What's been going on in IB? Complaints go up, 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 up. Guess what this stuff is going to do? Complaints are going to go up, 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 up. All new allegations to be had. And again, it just highlights the pandering to this committee, to this anti-police Marxist New York City Council, because they're doing this to appease them.
Absolutely. It's us giving in. It's more self-initiated cases. You said a long time ago, I wholeheartedly agree with you. We self-initiate our own complaints against ourselves by filling out threat resistance injury reports. We self-initiate it by making a notification to Internal Affairs Bureau that we had to use force. We self-initiate on our paperwork by saying that by charging resisting arrest, which is an implication that there was a physical altercation involved. The Civilian Complaint Review Board currently has the authority to self-initiate a case. And now let's go even further. And AI will now self-initiate that complaint against you. So on every angle, on all ends, it's just impossible to do intrusive police work. Again, law enforcement is the profession that you go to work with a tool belt and you say, well, how do I do this job without using these tools? How do I make it through the entire day without doing my job? That's what it's become. If you were a construction worker and you had a tool belt and you had to put a nail in the wall and you said, well, I have a hammer and I have all these tools, but I can't use it. How do I get this nail in the wall? Or you say, you know what? I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to put it in. That's what police work has become. This is impossible. More oversight. You have oversight in every angle. It's impossible. I think there's so many different ways to skin a cat. You can look at a scene that a police officer involved, and the perception could be, hey, everything was done well. And there could be another perception that, hey, it could have been done differently. And that's why I don't say necessarily there's right and wrong. I believe police work, there's actions and consequences. And that's the way we should actually look at body camera footage. But we're not doing that. Is this transparency? Is this accountability? No, it's just more pressure on the police department so they do not do intrusive police work and less engagement with the public.
Yeah. And then what happens when they put this AI thing in place? Do they go backwards on all the body camera video and have AI generate complaints? So you guys think you're good, and next thing you know, you're like, no, right before the statute of limitations. Well, you know what? Let's extend the statute of limitations because we just found this great technology and we need to weed out corruption in the New York City Police Department. So we're going to go back. We're going to extend the statute of limitations and we're going to have AI check all this. We're going to have AI check all the body camera videos, right? This way we could erase them after they've been checked. So we don't have to, it's actually a cost savings plan. It's a cost savings plan and they're going to save a lot of money. And this next clip is going to show you exactly how they're going to save a lot of money. This one, I'm not going to mess up. Sorry for the last one, but I'm not going to edit that out. I thought it was playing. This one will be playing.
We have like a 2-minute delay. So whoever's on the audio, sorry, just have a smoke with the
Seriously, was it 2 minutes? I apologize. Whoever was listening, I apologize.
It was quite a while.
Paul Gamble, Deputy Commissioner and Department Advocate. While we're anxious to return officers to full duty to perform the law enforcement function, we want to make sure that officers who are returned to duty have been appropriately sanctioned where appropriate for the misconduct. Sometimes that misconduct is so serious that they can no longer remain on the force. Last year, 78 members of the force were terminated. The total suspension days and vacation days imposed total 14,500, which would be the equivalent of $5.3 million in fines. So while we want the disciplinary process to move expeditiously, when police officers are brought back, we want them brought back with a sanction that will be a disincentive to any further misconduct. You should know 91% of the force has never had an allegation of misconduct. And for those who do, 83% of them never have a second allegation. So we believe that our efforts are effective, and where someone should no longer be part of the force, they are removed.
What do you think about that?
You know what? It's funny. I said this a while ago when I watched this. It matches what we've been saying about the job ever since you and I have been on. Ever since we went to the academy, what did they tell us, John? 10% of this job does 90% of the work. And he just said it. 91% of the job has never had an allegation. So 91% of the job is not doing intrusive police work. 9% of the job has misconduct complaints. So it's on par exactly what they've been saying since we came on the job. 10% of the job is doing 90% of the work. 10% of the police department is doing intrusive police work. For those 10%, I feel sorry for them. You have to ask yourself, do you want to continue on this road? Do you want to be me? Do you want to be the most complained cop? Actually, we have someone that just got promoted. He's on par. He might be the most complained cop at this point. I just want to say I'm happy, and I want to congratulate the lieutenant that actually made captain. I'm happy that he actually got promoted to captain despite his civilian complaints. Obviously, he's a good cop. He's out there working. He deserves it. So I just want to say you can thank New York's Finest Unfiltered podcast for putting this information out there and putting pressure on the police department so that lieutenants can get promoted to captain while they're being attacked by an overzealous civilian complaint review board. So with that said, you know what? Our mission accomplished. That's what I have to say. We accomplished our mission. You know what? Sometimes that's why I said, the experiences that John and I have dealt with the police department, we intend to be a force from outside to help within. Mission accomplished.
I wouldn't say mission accomplished just yet. I would say public relations towards the rank and file agenda. I would say that if they didn't promote this lieutenant to captain, we would have been all over it and we would have said, see, we told you so. This is what happens when you go out and do proactive police work. So what the job is doing currently is they're like, no, let's just promote him. Even though we didn't promote Eric Dim, even though we held Eric Dim back from his civil service promotion that he earned, let's promote this guy. And everything looks like it's on the up and up, and we look like we're protecting the men and women in the New York City Police Department. When everything you're hearing in this meeting is they're not doing anything to protect anything else. So I believe he's a one-off. I do believe he's very similarly situated to you, considering he now, you may still be the most complained cop. I think you might have more allegations and he has more complaints or whatever it may be. Who cares, right? You guys are similarly situated, right?
Absolutely.
You're similarly situated. You were lieutenants. You were very active lieutenants. You have a lot of civilian complaints compared to the rest of the job at this point in time, right? At this point in time, because again, as time goes on, I keep saying these are going to be rookie numbers because it's going to be every day. Every day you're going to be getting complaints, especially when this AI thing comes out. But similarly situated. He was promoted. Eric Dim isn't. So I'm not telling you what to do, Eric, but if it was me, I'd sue.
You know it. I don't like to show all my cards, but I'm sure the police department will expect it. Absolutely. But as I said, I feel in this aspect, mission accomplished. Not the whole mission, but I'm actually not jealous or I feel slight. I'm actually happy that he was able to get promoted, and I hope other lieutenants, if they find themselves in this position, that they could be promoted also, because this should not hold you back. An overzealous civilian complaint review board. So I definitely will seek refuge on my part, absolutely. But for that lieutenant, who's now a captain, God bless. I wish you well in your career. I hope that as you move up through your career, if you seek to get promoted even further, that you remember the goodness that came upon you and you treat others the same way, and you don't change where you came from. This obviously you're doing intrusive police work and you're a cop's cop. Remember, you're part of that 10%. So let's talk even further about this monetary value that Paul Gamble speaks of. Quite interesting. What was the amount? $5 million approximately.
5.3 million. I think he said 14,500 hours. I think it was 5.3 million. He said.
So look how substantial that is. Again, it's always everything that we say. Follow the money. Follow the money. You follow the discipline system. Follow the money. You follow the actual intricacies of this police department. You follow the actual ultimate goal, and that's the ultimate goal. It comes down to monetary value. 14,000 some odd vacation days. It's equivalent to $5 million. So that $5 million obviously gets allocated or somewhere configured into something else. What I'm curious, and I always wondered this, is there somewhere discussed behind closed doors about a budget of casualties? I'm always curious, is there, hey, listen, we need 5 million or 10 million reallocated to something, and so let's try to ensure we meet a certain amount of discipline to fit this monetary value? I'm curious. I would think that there is some type of unwritten quota. What are your thoughts?
I think so. I got named the integrity control officer of the facilities management division. And one thing I said when they named me, I spoke to the CO and his CO, and I said, listen, if you guys are gonna, I have no problem with disciplining people, but if you put a quota on me, you might as well just transfer me right now. I said, because I'm not into discipline at all. If things are necessary, I'll do them, but I'm 100% not going out and hammering people. And there are people throughout the years. There was a lieutenant I remember. I only ever did I forget what the hell the name of it was, but like you would go to the city and they would have posted throughout the city. I think it was called CRT, right, or something like that.
CRV. CRV. Remember that?
Excuse me, CRV.
CRV. Yeah.
There was some lieutenant there. I only ever did it one time. But I get my posts. I have from the Wall Street Bull all the way up to like the Jewish Museum on like 57th Street, all the way up, right? So I have posts lined all the way there. So I never did this before. I don't know. I have no idea. You go there in uniform, you get a bunch of guys, everybody's out on foot post. And what they wanted is one person in the car, one person out of the car. And I read a quick note and it said like where they wanted the cars situated, right? How they wanted the cars situated. And it was only for a few posts. One was by the Bull, where the Native American Museum is. They wanted it situated a certain way. So that stuck out in my head. I only read it once. I went by. They wanted you to scratch your post twice as your sergeant, and to like these scratches, you go and inspect, and then you sign the memo book. Cops don't have memo books anymore. They do it on the phone now. But whatever. You had to sign the memo book. So I signed the memo books. I went and scratched. All my guys were doing what they had to do. I don't know what they're not doing when I'm not there. Obviously, I'm driving up and down the entire city, right? So I run into this lieutenant, complete douche. He comes walking up with the inspector. I'm out. I'm on 42nd Street in Times Square. I'm talking to the guys that have that post. I'm not in my car. I parked my car back and I walked in and I'm talking to the guys on the post. And the inspector comes walking up. I salute him. How you doing, Inspector? He's like, yeah, where is a car supposed to be positioned by the down by the Bull, the Native American Museum? So I remember it. I don't remember exactly what it is today, but I remember it. I spit it at him. He's like, where's the car supposed to be for the next post, right? I remember it. Again, I don't know why I remember. I never did it before. I just remembered reading it. And I tell him, and he's like, where are your other posts? So I tell him where all my posts are. And he's like, and you visited all of them? I'm like, yeah. And boom, this lieutenant comes in my face. And he's like, well, what about this post that's not even on my route? And what about that post? I was like, I don't have that post, sir. And he's like, well, they were on their phone. I was like, okay. And he's like, you don't think that's a big deal? I said, I don't know. I said, listen, you're not supposed to be on the phone. I don't know. I said, but it's not my post. He told me at the time, he goes, listen, I gave 250 CDs out so far this year. So I didn't like him. So I was like, oh, congratulations. And the inspector literally told him, like, he's all right. Leave him alone. Like, to leave me alone. But he was like, I'm just letting you know, any of you guys slip up, you're getting a CD. I was like, no problem. No problem. You know, and I'll never forget that guy because my thought in my head was, this guy has no idea what he's doing. He's just harming people to save the city money. And he's writing people up for nonsense when he could easily just be like, get off your phone. If I see that again, you're getting a CD and the issue's corrected. But no, instead, he's just giving people CDs. He has no interest in providing public safety or teaching anybody.
What's his name?
I don't remember. He was a douche. I only ever did it once, but he was notorious. So anyone that's listening to this was probably like 2011, 2012, 2013. That was the only time I ever did CRV.
You remember that pretty well. I know you got a good memory. Come on, what's his name? Think back.
I swear to God, I don't remember his name. I would say his name right now. I would say his name. I remember what he looks like. If I seen him, I'd be like, that's the guy.
I'd love to blow it up. Oh, man. I agree.
But he was notorious. He was notorious. The guy. Somebody, if you guys remember who that is, blow his name up. Let us know.
You know what I hate about that? It sounds like he's one of the guys. There's a few on the job. Thank God it's not the whole job, but there's a few guys on the job that get their rocks off by giving out discipline and being punitive. I don't know why. I never understood it. If you have to get discipline, it should be because you're going to correct someone, not because you're making yourself feel better and getting your own rocks off. That's the part I don't like when it comes to discipline. It shouldn't be about you protecting your ego or making yourself feel good. It should be about making someone better. And honestly, if they're on the phone and you check the post, how are you supposed to know that they're on the phone? You're not staying there watching every move they make. I think that's how would you be held accountable for that? Now, if they were wearing a uniform item that they weren't supposed to wear, that's something that is going to remain there, and you didn't address it, that's different. But how are you supposed to address it? They're on the phone. Do you know if they put the phone in the pocket? That's ridiculous.
He was just silly. A douche, bro. He was out there taking money. He was just a douche. That's it. And I believe like those guys don't even know what they're doing, but that's what they're doing. Where that money is going, I don't know. I'd love to know. I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I do believe that there's some type of budget that gets reallocated somewhere else. Hey, we need $10 million from the police department to be reallocated maybe to another agency or maybe to another part of the police department. How do we get that money? Through discipline. And I'm sure these ICOs throughout the city, they go to meetings at one police plaza. Usually once a year, they have a giant meeting with all the ICOs. I'm sure that's something that's suggested. I'm sure it's not saying, hey, we need so much money, but I'm sure, hey, are you addressing the discipline? How many CDs, command disciplines did you write this year, right? We always had the command discipline book on the desk. And it's quite interesting, right? Did you ever notice about the book? Did you ever notice that every year, and that's why I say I believe this, every year it was always similar numbers. Like I remember I was in PSA 4. I remember it was like 50. It would always be about 50 for the year. And then following year, it would be about 50, 51. Following year, it would be 49, 50. It was always about the same. That's why I believe that there is some type of allocated budget or quota for that. You ever notice that?
I think that dude had a quota. I think there's certain positions that have a quota. I think the ICO has a quota. And that's why I said that. The thing with facilities is very unique is that there's a lot of civilians there. So they lose everything. So I lost my CD. I lost my ID card. I lost my plaque. I lost this. All this is required to get a CD. So the CD numbers are what they are. You know what I mean? But to go out and like smash people and try to look, oh, this guy's wearing white socks and he shouldn't. I'm not doing that. I was never doing that. But that's what that lieutenant was doing. And there's plenty of guys like him. But I think that there are positions like that in the NYPD. And I think this new Professional Standards Bureau is something that I hear that they're doing that. They're literally going out and they're not correcting people. They're looking for numbers on cops. And I believe it's into this cost savings plan. Where the money goes, I have no idea. If anybody knows, please let us know.
Yeah, I definitely want to know. I'm really curious because it's something I always thought about, even years before doing this podcast. Like, well, where does this money go? You know, it definitely goes somewhere because ultimately, when we talk about suspension, modification, loss of vacation days, it's equivalent to a monetary value. You remember He Chan-sul spoke on this at her budget hearing. She spoke on the monetary value when it came to vacation days. So it's definitely a huge aspect of the job that's not spoken about publicly. But I definitely would put my money behind closed doors that this is definitely a major topic that's discussed. We're not talking about chump change. We're talking about $5 million. That's a substantial, even for the police department. That's a substantial. What's the? I think the budget for the police department's, I want to say six billion for the year. Is that right?
I forget. I don't remember. They said it in the beginning of this. I think it's more than that, dude. Yeah, I think it's more than that.
So that's still a substantial $5 million. That's still a substantial amount.
But I mean, and then he testified that there were 78 members terminated from the NYPD. What's the cost savings on that? You know, that's now you're talking like at least $78 million. At least.
Absolutely.
Maybe more.
Absolutely. Especially if they're veterans close to retirement. How much money did the city just save by not pay out these pensions?
Yeah, especially if they're a 14-year veteran who's still got 6 years ahead of him and he's friends with Roger Stone and Donald Trump. You know, especially if that guy, you get rid of that guy, you know, you terminate the guys that told you they're not gonna let you put something in their body to work. And they're not gonna fall into this Harvey Weinstein scheme, and they don't care. They don't have to do the movie. Get somebody else, you know, especially that. So, you know, absolutely terrible. You know, listen, and listen, there's people that need to be fired on the NYPD, 100%. Unfortunately, some of them that are doing the firing should be firing themselves. So,
well said. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the next. You got something?
No, I'm ready for the next one. I just hope it works.
All right, let's go.
No work to improve on.
But do you agree that the department was in fact supposed to issue way more desk appearance tickets than ended up? And we didn't get the number, by the way.
No, we don't give desk appearance tickets to Burglary.
But council member, I think what you're getting at, I could be wrong. I think you're getting at the issue that's being litigated now in the Douglas case. If I'm not mistaken, that is about desk appearance tickets in the field versus desk appearance tickets back at a precinct or at a MAPC. And as you know, that's a matter of dispute between legal aid, I believe it's legal aid, and the NYP, and it's currently being litigated.
So I caught the cheeky response about burglary. And for folks who don't know, the legal definition of burglary is simply a trespass with the intent to commit a crime therein, which could be anything as simple as a violation or a small piece of property that was damaged or whatever it is. So it could be something that little that you are then overcharging and over arresting with a non-violent felony that carries mandatory minimum upstate time that you then leverage in a criminal legal process.
Councilmember, they took over a building, barricaded it. There was an article this morning, actually, maybe you saw it, about how the guards or the people who were working in that building were absolutely terrified. And it sounds like at first at least one of them was not able to leave because they had.
I mean, I've heard lots of folks were absolutely terrified by the militarized vehicles, by the accidental discharge that went off, by the use of force by the department. I am over my time. And so, Chair, I apologize. I'm going to wrap up. But I find your answers to be wholly unsatisfactory and entirely uncompelling.
The department responded out there at the request of Columbia. We were very restrained out there. We spoke to the young people. We did our job properly out there. All right. We responded to a call from help from the university.
You know, I got to give it to Madry again. He tests logic. That's the part I have to agree with. He tests logic. We responded properly. He just tests our logic because her logic is insane. She's a complete wacko. That part I agree with. I agree with John Cho. She is a total wacko. I don't know how anybody votes for her. First of all, did you even hear what she said? She said that burglary is when you trespass there within and commit a crime, but sometimes it could be a violation. No, you have to have the intent to commit a crime, not a violation. She doesn't even know what she's talking about. Isn't she a lawyer?
Yeah, she's a lawyer. Yeah, she's a lawyer. Yeah, I put that out. She was pissed that I put it out, and she retweeted it and said that this is what happens when cops don't know the law, like something along those lines. Like, and I'm like, you're a lawyer, and I did is I took Berg 3 and I was like, actually, the definition is you enter unlawfully with the intent to commit a crime there within. That is much different than you trespass and commit a violation. I mean, in half the time, you know, and in an effort to overcharge and over arrest, I mean, in half the time, there's a lot of arrests that we make that are technically by the law burglary, and we don't charge it. You know what I mean? Like, we don't charge it. Like, come on. How many trespass, like smoking marijuana or dealing drugs, and we don't hit them with burglary and things of that nature. I mean, she's out of home. She makes like the cops are making money for imprisoning people. Who goes to jail in New York City? Nobody. And they never did.
She's out of her mind because the overwhelming majority of trespass arrests in housing throughout my entire career, you know exactly what I'm talking about, were actually burglaries, but we downgraded them and charged people with trespass. She's absolutely ridiculous saying that. Honestly, the overwhelming majority of trespassers in housing when I was working, they were there to commit a crime. They were there to sell drugs, or they were there to buy drugs, or they were there to buy a gun. They were there to break into an apartment.
Use drugs.
Exactly. They were committing a crime, not a violation. They were there with the intent to commit a crime, and we didn't charge burglary. We charged trespass. If we did charge burglary, these crime numbers would be even far worse than they are right now. But she's an insane wacko.
Yeah, she's not.
Where'd she get her degree from? LegalZoom? I mean, she's nuts. And that's why, honestly, this thing is great. Every time I watch this budget hearing, I think of the movie Gladiator, and he's like, "Are you entertained? I am entertained." This is very entertaining. I almost want you to play that clip again, Lucian. Oh yeah.
What's funny though is LePetri couldn't hold himself. He couldn't hold himself. And you can see as soon as she started talking, you can see he was annoyed. He's like grabbing his phone. He's like, "I'm not listening to this." But then he couldn't even help it. He couldn't even help himself. And he's like, "Yeah, but we don't give the ATs for burglary, right?" And she's like, "I know it." And she's like, "Let me tell you what burglary is." And he's like, "I know what burglary is." And then she starts talking. And then he can't, and then he starts laughing because he's like, this girl's an idiot. He's like, he in his head, he's like already like, wait, that's not the definition of burglary. And then
they were thinking the same thing.
The deputy commissioner of legal matters goes, "They broke into a building and took it over."
Again, that was testing her logic. He's like, they went to a building. You can't make this up. I mean, come on. She's nuts. But she's one of your most prominent city council figures. This is the ideology here.
Yeah.
Oh, we got another one. Let's play more.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Hold
this
on.
is too much fun. It's like, all right, which one's next? Oh my God.
This one I think is going to be a good one.
They're all good.
Responsiveness to questions from the speaker and other council members today. I think hiding behind a DOI investigation to fail to provide direct answers to council member questions is inappropriate. And I do hope that information will be provided in writing and follow up, because there's no reason not to provide direct answers to the questions that have been put forward today. And I'm disappointed. It's the first time I can recall the chief of patrol not showing up for an executive budget hearing and answering questions. That is a serious disappointment as well. I am very concerned about the return of broken windows policing since Mayor Adams came into office. We've seen I think we're on pace for a 4-fold increase in the number of summons that are going to be issued this year. Stop and frisk, pedestrian stops are up 90%, basically double. Misdemeanor arrests are up 51%. Adult incarceration is up 30%. Youth incarceration, kids in jail have doubled. So across the board, we are just sweeping more and more and more of our young people, especially young Black and brown people, into our criminal justice system. And the effect that it's having on crime and on solving and preventing crimes in our communities is significant. We've seen response times go up dramatically year over year. And I imagine you've all had a chance to review the data since the last time you came before us. Is that right?
Yes.
So you do have, you now verified that the mayor's management report is a city report that has accurate information?
I saw the report. I have the response times in front of me.
Okay.
So as we sit here, do you want me to answer the question?
Please, for critical crimes in progress, can you give us the response time?
Sure. So you can look at response time a lot of different ways. I'm going to look at it the following way. You have the event create time. So that the event create time means the job comes up on the screen.
We don't got to go through the whole thing, but I mean, first, before you go, Eric, what does he tell his barber like when he goes to get a haircut? Like, what is that called?
To provide direct answers.
Like, what do you think that the name of that is? Like, what is it? Does he say? Does he ask for the Sophia cut from Golden Girls?
Let me get the one that looks like I have cobwebs in it. Let me get that one. The bird's nest. I want a bird's nest. He looks like an 8-year-old boy. Honestly, he really looks like an 8-year-old boy. You see his hand? It's like so soft and tender. I mean, you clearly see him had a hard working day in his life. But he showed his hand.
He looks like the grandmother from Golden Girls. I don't care what anybody tells me. That's him. He's a little old Italian lady. Sophia, I think her name is.
I gotta admit, I like that moment with LePetri. I like that. It's like, you can let me answer the question. Like, that was great. I like that because that he did it in a very cunning way. Like, can you stop disrespecting me, little boy? Let me speak. That's basically saying, let me speak, little boy. And again, let's test the logic. He talks about response times, but what came out in that little monologue? What came out is the truth. It's not just about stop, question, and frisk. They have a problem with all the policing. He wants policing abolished. He said broken windows. That is the bedrock and foundation of NYPD policing. He wants to get rid of all broken windows. I haven't heard that in a while. He didn't just mention stop, question, and frisk. He mentioned broken windows, all policing. But he's concerned with response times. It's completely absurd. I mean, again, this goes back to what I said. It's like, he stabs the police department in the back and says, hey, can you go out and do your job? I know you're bleeding, but please, can you go out and do it? Go to these response times with all the How Many Stops Act. Go to the response times with the diaphragm law, with bail reform, with a diminished police department, defund the police. Can you please handle these response times? Oh, and by the way, you can't combat park either.
This is actually a great clip because it just highlights the sheer incompetence all around, I think, right? He's upset about the return to broken windows. He blames the police department because the arrests and the summonses are up because they're just sweeping people. These people aren't committing crimes. The police department's just sweeping them up, right? But I agree with him that Shell and Kaz should be there. I agree with him that the chief of patrol should have been there. Very cowardly that they're not. I agree with him on that. I agree with him on the response times. I do. And when you hear like them go further in that, it's a pretty long clip, that one. It's about 3:45. We could talk about it. They start to you know what? I'll pull it back up and we'll finish playing it. Like LePetri starts talking, but he starts now. He's playing games. Oh, the event create time. Yeah, the numbers are up, but he never really wants to say it. Basically, in 2019, the response times were 5 minutes, and those were up from when we were cops. That is up from when we were cops and when we were on the job, right? So that in 2019, it's 5 minutes. Now it's 7 minutes. So 40% increase in response times. But I agree with you, Eric, and I think they do mention it here. The protests are a big part of that. You gotta take into account what precincts are in there. They gotta hone in on it. But I do think it's a big deal. But when you turn around and you look at the whole picture of this whole meeting, and you hear the chief of personnel talking about they don't have a problem with attrition and they don't have a problem with hiring and all these other things, you're like, wait a minute, that's not real. That's not so like the police department, as much as it appears like they're sometimes there's like a glimmer of hope where they're like, oh yeah, we're going to talk the truth. Then they just, on the other end, somebody else doesn't. And they just, again, pander back to the city council.
And I just want to say, before you play the clip, it was an opportunity also for Chief LePetri or someone else on that day to say, you know what? Do you realize what you just said, Councilman? Lincoln Wrestler or Golden Girls? What you just said is that my police officers, the rank and file of the police department, is actually doing an exemplary job. Their job is flawless because there's more crimes happening in the streets. Summonses and arrests are up. So what you're saying is that they're out there doing their job. I want to thank you for that. That would have been a great opportunity to mock it and again, test logic. Yeah, exactly. Arrests and summonses are up. They are doing exactly what's going on with the crime trend. They're doing the job that they're paid and trained to do.
Yeah, and go to our Instagram, because as much as I don't like Lincoln Wrestler, I got to say he's got a sense of humor, because we made a meme with him as the grandmother from Golden Girls. We played the Golden Girls music with it. He retweeted it, and he said, thank you for being a friend.
Yeah, I gotta give it to him. Yeah.
So I'll give it to him. He's got thicker skin than some of the Chiefs on this job. So
More than cats.
well, definitely more than Cows, definitely more than Shell.
Hey, Lincoln, you know what? Take it back. You're not an 8-year-old boy with soft hands. God bless you.
All right, we're gonna finish this. This is LePetri talking. Here's where he starts to be like, crime's up. But, if you just take out 2019, 2020, we're actually at historic lows. Not 100% at historic lows, but maybe at historic lows. Like this is.
I saw this. I wanted to stab myself in the eye with a spoon when I listened to him.
Yeah. So here we go.
That has the job in front of it. Then you have the dispatch time, and then you have the arrival by the officer. Right, so the officer has to put him or her there 84, or a sharp dispatcher will put them 84, even if they don't put themselves 84, but they start coming over the radio to inform.
So this is end to end? Is that what you're giving me?
No, I'm not giving you end to end.
Okay.
That would be closeout job. I gave you event time to dispatch time to when the officers arrive.
Okay.
So right now, we're about flat from last year. We're at about a 14-minute. Now, this is not critical.
No, I'm asking for critical.
Critical, we're about 7 minutes.
You're about 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So historically, it always been about 5 minutes. Where were we at last year on critical?
Last year, we were about six and a half.
And back in FY19, we were at 5. So for critical crimes in progress, the most serious crimes happening in the city of New York, when guns are shot, when robberies are happening, when people's lives are at risk, it's taking 40% longer from pre-pandemic times for NYPD to respond. Is that right?
Look, if we want
Just
to.
yes or no?
No, I can't answer that question.
You can't answer that question?
Council member, so one thing you have to understand about response times is that, it's an average. One bad job can skew all the numbers. So we can have 20.
But how many jobs are you responding to, Chief?
I'm just giving an example. We can have 20 critical jobs, and we can respond with light and quick. If we have one bad job where officers can't get to because they're on another job, they're on a shooting,
I hear
they're
you.
dealing with something.
But Chief,
it
you're
does
responding
skew the
to
numbers.
thousands
So
and thousands
we
of
really
critical
have
response.
when we deal with response times, all right, and this is, when you asked this question last time, even before you asked that question, I looked at response times and I realized there's certain precincts that they have a higher volume of calls, they're dealing with more difficult situations, and they skew citywide numbers. So we really have to drill down and look and say, hey, we're having an issue in these precincts.
Yeah. I like that he kept talking, Chief Manager. He stood his ground on that. That I have to give Jeffrey Manager on that because, Lincoln Wrestler just keeps trying to interrupt. He's like an impatient little kid. Just let them speak. Again, he has no humility. Just let them speak. Show a little respect. And obviously, I'm glad he never became a police officer. He'd be a terrible one. Every time he asks a question, what's that?
No, I'm saying he would be awful.
Oh, terrible. But he never gives them an opportunity to speak. That's something that we learned in the police, that if you ask a question, give someone an opportunity to answer the question. He doesn't. He asks the question, and if they don't answer fast enough, he's fired away with another one. Like he's throwing a temper tantrum.
Yeah,
we got your point. The response times are off. Let them give the response. At least counteract it. Something.
But Eric, so this question was asked last time. Caban and Kinsella are sitting there like they never heard this question before. They're completely not saying anything. Madry's got to take it over. Madry sees, if you look at Madry looking at LePetri as he's talking, he's kind of like, chill out. Like, he's kind of like telling him, chill out, Mike. Like, I got this. But like the police commissioner is not there, bro. He's not in the game. He's not at all. Kinsella's not in the game. Like Madry's in the game. LePetri's in the game. He's annoyed, but he's in the game.
But that's why I said, Madry is the glue. And LePetri, I can understand why he's annoyed. He's probably annoyed because this entire time he's the smartest one in that days, and he's been completely shut out. He's been overshadowed by Kaz Daughtry, John Shell, Madry. But you can just see their faces. And no time is Tanya Kinsella or Ed Caban, coming in for the save or trying to assist. They just, they sit there like praying, like, all right, don't ask me a question. I'll just sit here and wait. Do they show a presence that they're in charge of the police department?
Not at all. None.
Zero. And I will say, right, Jeffrey Madry at least he shows presence. He does. I have to say, he does command the room. He does. He's the voice of reason. He does it in a very stoic manner. That's what I mean. I have to say that he does. I will give him credit for that. He's stoic in his response. He stands his ground. He, in my opinion, has shown the most strength out of any of them.
I think, yeah, I agree. I think Petrie's a very smart guy. I do. I think he's one of
Yeah,
the smartest
he is.
people on it. You could wipe that day as clean, in my opinion. I said it on the last podcast. The deputy commissioner of management budget. I don't think we're going to hear her here today at all. But she's on the police department like a week, and she like kind of shines greater than all of them. And you're like sitting there, and you're like, wow, this girl's been in the police department a week, and most of them can't shine her shoes. She knows more about the police department than they do. I mean, she's more in the game than they are, and like, so I don't know. I just thought it was I just thought that was like spoke volumes that like Madry's the one stepping in when it really should have been Caban or Kinsella. Like, and they're sitting there, and I agree with you, Eric. That's what it looks like to me. I hope they don't ask me a question so that I don't have to guess on who I should kick it to, on who should answer, and hopefully they step up if they ask it to me, that somebody else speaks for me.
Oh yeah,
they're not in that game, and they weren't prepared for it.
Tanya was like the telephone switchboard operator. Yeah. Can I help you? Oh, you need to speak to someone at Deputy Commissioner Management Budget? Hold on. Oh, you need to speak to someone for Chief Patrol, because she wasn't really taking any responsibility, opportunity to. This was an opportunity for her to say, you know what? Everyone thinks I'm a DEI hire. I'm going to show that I deserve to be here. This would have been the opportunity to shine, but she didn't. And I'm not knocking her because I have something against her, but it's just a reality. I mean, does she look like she commands a presence? Let's go back to the predecessor here. And I will say, we never got to see an opportunity if Key Chan Sewell could live up to the hype that we heard. But I will give her this. She commanded a room, she commanded a presence, and she commanded a sense of authority. At the budget hearing, I do believe that she took charge and she commanded that room. That I will give her credit on that. Absolutely.
I agree. This is this clip I'm very concerned with. This clip, I put it out there. I didn't really comment on it at all because I just wanted to see if everybody was getting the same vibe that I was getting and seeing it the same way I did. So I'm going to play it. Let's get your thoughts on it, Eric, because this one is, I'm telling you, this one I think really highlights the pandering, the incompetence, everything all around. It's like, this is New York City. It's ran by fools. It's policed by fools, and everyone's just being led astray.
PD has reported that it issued nearly 120,000 summonses for fair beating in 2023. How many of those have resulted in frisk? How many has resulted in search?
So it's a complex answer. What I can say is just about 96 point whatever percent of the people we stopped for fare evasion in 2023 were not searched. They were treated as a civil violation, if you will, and released on a tab summons. So that would leave 2 point whatever percent that either received a criminal court summons or were arrested. Certainly, if you're arrested, you're frisked and searched. And to be arrested on a fare evasion charge, it's usually what we see is you have an active warrant for your arrest, and or you found in possession of a weapon. So 97% of people are not frisked. They're stopped, they present ID, and they're released within a few minutes with a civil tab summons.
And then within that 2% that you're saying the frisk is happening is due to all of them being arrested?
Each situation is different, but the overwhelming supermajority of people that are frisked, if you will, or searched, are subsequent to arrest on a fare evasion.
Does NYPD have like a more definitive statistic on that in terms of out of that grouping of those who are frisked, what proportion of those are then arrested versus those who are not? And for those that are arrested, what are the types of offense? And for those who are, I'm just sorry.
I'm sorry.
And for those that are not arrested, what led to the frisk?
Can I jump in? If I may just jump in for a second, because this might help. So usually when we talk about, we have obviously lots of data regarding frisks and searches in a level 3 situation where you have a reasonable suspicion stop, right? You're not making an arrest, or you may or may not make an arrest, but you're making a level 3 stop. And then there are all sorts of rules about when you can frisk and when you can't, when you can search and when you can't. And we obviously, we have reports we are required to do every time we have a level 3 stop, and we have to track frisk and search and the like. But I think what Chief Kemper is getting at is that in the fair evasion context, if you're talking about an actual arrest, you're almost always going to be talking about a situation where you have a probable cause arrest to begin with. That is, someone was caught evading the fair. Most of those times, we're not effectuating an arrest, as Chief Kemper said. But in that universe, almost always, you're going to be in a level 4 situation, probable cause arrest for some reason. From one of these narrow reasons, we've chosen to actually effectuate an arrest. And then every time someone's arrested, right, there's going to be a frisk and search pursuant to arrest. So I don't think we would necessarily track that, because every arrest has sort of a search incident to arrest that comes with that. But I think what we can do is we can certainly, pull the data, look at it, and to the extent we have data that's responsive to your question, we will provide it to you.
Thank you, Chairs. Can I just ask 2.5 more questions?
2.5. 2.5. First of all, I can't even listen to that anymore. I heard that response before I watched her speak. Absolutely painful to watch. But I think that Chief Kemper's response was an epic fail. This was an opportunity to say, again, the New York City Council expects to have data on every situation. This is not data that we comprise of. If there was a stop, question, frisk applicable to a situation, if it was a level 3 Terry stop, a stop report would be prepared. A summons is in lieu of an arrest. If someone does not have identification, that arrest will be made. It's a case-by-case basis. Every stop is a different scenario. Some stops lead to a summons. Some stops lead to an arrest. And of course, the Deputy Commissioner of Legal Matters had to play cleanup when it came to arrest. I think his response was an epic fail. I think her question is absolutely an overreach. It's absolutely ridiculous to expect the police department to have that kind of data. And again, it's part of this abolish the police movement. She seems perturbed by the fact that people are getting summoned and getting frisked. That is a great opportunity to do intrusive police work, broken windows to address issues and make the transit safe. But she alluded to it, and also with Lincoln Wrestler, that they're in complete opposition of broken windows or any type of intrusive police work. That's what they're telling you. And again, they're working in conjunction with the Civilian Complaint Review Board to remove this type of police work. They want police to be security cards: observe, report, repeat.
Eric, like what's concerning to me is he says, and again, it's pandering to me, 98% of the people that are stopped for fair invasion aren't frisked or searched.
Yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely. He's actually, I actually want to go further into it, and I forgot to mention, it almost seems like he's defending this situation. We didn't hurt these people. We didn't violate their rights. We just gave them summons, and they were civil in nature. So he seemed very defensive, and this was an opportunity, again, to test their luck, say, wait a minute, we have a crime issue in transit right now. We've heard these concerns about safety. Broken windows or intrusive police work is the bedrock to bring transit safe. Are we giving summonses? Yes. When they need to be frisked or searched, it's done when it's applicable. That would have been it. But again, he seemed like he was carrying away from it. Almost like, I'm sorry. Yeah. Most of the people weren't touched. I'm sorry. Did I touch your people? That's what it seemed like to me.
Two things to me. One, I feel like that's a huge lie that's being perpetrated. One, because we used to lock up everybody for fair evasion. Summons in lieu of arrest. So we're saying that we're giving people summonses, but we didn't feel a need to frisk them. I don't know, man. That's not broken windows to me. That is numbers for numbers to me. That are the right people getting summons then? because under broken windows, right? They all say, oh, Eric Adams returned to broken windows. Did he really? Or did he just return to broken windows numbers? Because if he returned to broken windows, it would be 98% of those people were frisked and 2% weren't because they were juveniles or whatever
Absolutely.
it was. And it was a dumb thing. So like when he's sitting there going, 98% of the people weren't frisked, I'm like, what? I'm like, my head almost exploded. I was like, I went back, I rewinded it. I went back, I rewinded it again. And when I tweeted about it, I was going to write at the end, why not? Because I wrote 98%. He reports that 98% of the people were not frisked or searched. And my question would have been, why not?
Well, this actually solidifies Edward Raymond's complaint. So I remember you and Edward Raymond had a discussion on Tremel Thompson's podcast, right? And there was a question, and there was a question about quotas. And Edward Raymond had said, and Edward, if you have an opportunity to listen to this, just to let you know we're listening. Edward Raymond had talked about a situation that he spoke to a friend of his, or a cop, that made an arrest of a kid that was using a student ID or something like that. And supposedly the kid was a good kid. He should have been home. It was an arrest that really shouldn't have been made. It seemed like he was a good kid. This was an arrest. Now, that's, I think, what we're talking about. I think that exactly what you're saying, and this is what I heard from members of the police department. Don't get anybody in trouble. These anonymous complaints. That the cops are scared to actually stop the criminals. They're actually stopping, and they're issuing summonses to decent people. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I question if you're interacting with persons of interest, subjects that are committing the violation of fare evasion. Those are people that should be stopped, because you have to ask yourself, why are they evading the fare? What are they trying to hide? What are they trying to conceal? Why would we not frisk them? I mean, we have bag checks in transit. We have bag checks, but we're not going to frisk someone that's jumping a turnstile, that's committing a violation to get on the train. Which one is more concerning? And and we can make the assumption even now from StreamYard that someone is evading that fare to commit a crime on transit property. So I agree with you. Those numbers should be completely inverted. 98% of those stops should be stopped, questioned, and frisked. I think again, it's absolutely ridiculous that he's pandering to her, and I just felt like he was carrying away from it, and almost apologetic.
Wait, and then the other thing that he said is, when I was like, what the? He said, oh, but people are stopped if they people are frisked and searched if they find a gun. They find a gun if they weren't frisked and searched. How did they determine that the person was carrying a gun without frisking and searching them? How did that happen? Right? And then, like, if we're really going to hone in on keeping people safe and we're going to use minor crimes to do it, that doesn't mean we're going to use minor crimes to generate numbers and generate revenue for the city. It means we're going to use minor crimes to perform intrusive police work, right? Because what do you have right there, Eric? What do you have at that moment in time? Someone hops the turnstile. What level are you at?
Right. Exactly what the deputy commissioner legal matter said. You're at level 4. It's probable cause for an arrest. It's a summons, a little bit of arrest. Absolutely.
So are we stopping the right people? And I get it. Like, listen, there's going to be a time that you're not going to. I don't know. I honestly don't even know why you wouldn't frisk someone. I don't know. I remember I rolled up. I was a young sergeant. I rolled up on these two kids. They're running a warrant check. These two Mexican guys were drinking a beer. They're still drinking the beer. They're still drinking the beer, and the two cops are at their car with their back to the guys that are still drinking a beer, running warrant checks. I was like, stop the car right now. I got out of the car. I was like, you, come over here. You, come here. I grabbed the two guys. I put them on the car. I pat them down. I searched them. They have no weapons on them, nothing. I'm like, keep your hands on the car. I was like, now do the warrant check, right? They do the warrant check. Nobody pops. They get summonses. They go on their merry way. And I was like, let me ask you something, dude. Who knows who has a warrant? And the cop's looking at me like, Has no idea. I was like, they know if they have warrants. You don't know that. But yet you felt comfortable enough to have your back to them, let them have a glass bottle in their hand with their back to you. If they would have had, they're not wanted for murder. Like, what are you doing? I was like, he's like, yeah, but we're not allowed to search people for drugs. I was like, well, I'm not searching anybody for drugs. I frisked them to make sure I'm not going to get stabbed in my throat. I'm not going to give you guys CDs right now. I said, but we're going to redo this. Next time I see you, and you're running a warrant check, you will have the people who are stopped under control, and don't ever let me see somebody drinking a beer. You look like two morons on New York City street with your back to someone watching them drink a beer while you're about to give them summonses. And I'm like, dude, and I'm not doing this to scold you. I'm doing this because I'm afraid for your life, because that was the worst tactics I ever seen in my life. But I really don't know why you wouldn't at least frisk somebody. Why you wouldn't? Let me just make sure you don't have any weapons on you real quick. That's it. I just don't want to get shot in my face tonight. That's it.
Right. And, even in addition to that, right, what do we have? We have protective measures. If you're even at that point, you don't have the confidence to understand that you actually have the right to frisk. We're not even talking about a search at this point, but what about protective measures? You're allowed protective measures. And that could be something as simple as taking the beer out of their hand, putting it down, taking their hands out of their pockets, making sure that everything's visible. You have those protective measures that are not even included in a frisk or a search. Those protective measures are a constitutional right that when you engage someone, it's been already confirmed by a Supreme Court judge that you have the right to protective measures. But absolutely, I'm with you. Summons is a load of arrest. Someone's evading the fare. They should be, in most cases, and again, if you're stopping persons of interest that may be an impact of crime in the transit system, they should be frisked. And if they're not being frisked, who are you stopping? Are you stopping people that are going to and from work that don't have any impact? Are you stopping some guy that's running late who's in a suit going to work? That's why I always said what's important about intrusive police work is not necessarily the crime that's committed, but the arrest and the stop that you encounter. What is the impact that is going to have? And I do believe what Michael Kemper is basically saying is that there is some type of quota system that they're filling, whether it's monetary value or put on a show. But these summonses, right, clearly they're part of broken windows, but they're not addressing the quality of life condition because it's a front, it's a show. They're just making monetary value. We're just putting a show of a number game. And for him to be so defensive to say, oh, well, 98% of these people we didn't touch, another one with the light touch, he should have tested the logic and said, don't you expect us to frisk them to make sure that the police officers are safe if this person is going to be under arrest, or they're not a safety factor for the passengers, for the strap hangers in transit? This is ridiculous.
Dude, I'm telling you, like I literally, like my head almost, I was like, what? I literally thought he just messed up. Like when he said that he supported defunding the police at the last city council hearing, he didn't realize what the question was asked, and he was just answering it wrong. I don't think that he does support that, but he was answering it. Yeah, I do. But at this one, he's clearly telling you what's going on. Perception versus reality. The perception is, oh, we're stopping everybody and we're arresting everyone. But the reality is, are they really hitting the right people? If your grandmother's getting a ticket for walking past the thing, did New York City, is New York City safer that day? Is transit safer that day? Is transit safer that day if a couple of kids jumped over the turnstile and we just gave them summonses, but we didn't think they had anything on them or anything like that? I mean, again, summons in lieu of arrest. If we're stopping you, technically at that time, we're performing an investigation to determine whether or not we're going to arrest you, right? We're going to run your warrant history. We're going to pat you down, search you. We could, right? We could search you if we want to at that point, but we're not, pat down, make sure there's no weapons. There's nothing else there. Okay, we're good. We can give you the summons. You have no warrants. You'll be on your way. But what I'm hearing out of that is you didn't even perceive these people to be dangerous. You weren't even afraid during that stop, because 98% of the people you stopped were not a threat to you. You weren't worried where you had to pat them down. So are we stopping the right people is the question. I say glaringly, absolutely not.
Well, like John said, clearly we're not stopping the right people. Why? Because listen, I was never a transit cop, but I was under the impression that when someone jumps the turnstile, that they get ejected. They get a summons, a tab summons, and get ejected. So is Michael Kemper saying they get a summons and then they go right on the train? Is that what he said? You hop the turnstile, you get a summons, no one frisks you, no one's touching you, and then you go on the train. And now you have that gun in your pocket that no one found. You're pissed off, and now you go out shooting. I thought they get ejected. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Right. So might as well. If it's civil in nature, you know what? You know what I heard from that? I'm going to jump the turnstile every day, get a summons. I'll never pay. I can just keep getting these civil summons. Hop the turnstile, get a summons, go on the train. Hop the turnstile, get a summons, go on the train. That's what I heard.
And that's not to knock every transit cop, because by the way, they are making a lot of gun arrests off of these fare evasions. Like, they are making gun arrests, but that just tells me the majority of the people aren't stopping the right people. The majority of the people aren't performing their job properly, because if they were, you would be coming up with more guns and more knives. And I see videos all the time of people with guns in New York City Transit, like it's not a big deal. So obviously they're not worried about it.
You know what's interesting about that also, John? She wasn't satisfied with the number of 98%. So what about the other 2%? She wanted to be 100%. Did you hear that? I was like, wow.
Yeah.
She doesn't want anyone. She doesn't want any intrusion on potential subjects, persons of interest. She doesn't want any intrusion. That's basically what she said. She doesn't want the police doing their job. That's what I got from it.
Listen, I think the big thing that she was concerned with, she wanted to know how many people were frisked and searched who were arrested. You know.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And then Deputy Commissioner of Legal Matters says we don't track that number. Yeah, you do. It's called how many people did you arrest in transit? That's how many people you search and frisk. You track that number.
It's on your ComStat sheet.
Yeah, it's on your ComStat. I'll pull it up for you.
Well,
because obviously
ask Sam Antar. He's got the numbers.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next one. We got a couple more that we'll close this out. We actually, so this is fun, but this is an hour 36 minutes already. You know?
Yeah, but I think everyone's gonna have fun with it. They're gonna weigh in when it's like, yeah, you know what? Listen to what she said. Stupid, stupid lady.
Can you clarify the kinds of trainings, if any, that officers receive before being allowed to participate in mental health crisis responses?
So to start, in 2023, our department responded to 175,000 calls for an emotional disturbed persons in need of help. We as a department take great care in handling these crises. So under the police commissioner's direction, we formed a working group to identify the areas that we need to improve in. So the first item that we saw that we needed to improve in was increased training, right? So currently, approximately 50% of our members on patrol are trained in crisis intervention training. This training is a 4-day training, collaborating with Department of Health and Hygiene, right? So 50% of our members are trained in that. We are now in the infancy stages of adding additional training called Integrating Communications, Assessment and Tactics, ICAT. This would train our officers to respond tactically, which we believe will be a great complement in addition to the CIT training, which this training will be a refresher annually, not just a 4-day training, which you have it in the 4 days, and then you don't have it again for the rest of your career. So now we're making it an annual refresher. Every officer, in addition to that, every officer has on their department phones instructions how to deal with the different types of radio runs dealing with the emotionally disturbed persons, whether it be violent, non-violent, involuntary, voluntary. So we put that on their phones. In addition to that, we transitioned our equipment, our taser. We have a new taser, Taser 7, that is a lot more accurate. This taser has 2 cartridges, 2 laser dots that show where the dots will automatically land and turn on the body-worn cameras that are 30 feet within the taser. So it makes it more accurate. We also took a tally of our gear that officers have in their patrol vehicles responding to emotionally disturbed persons. So we're in the process of purchasing more department gear to help in our different steps of responding to these radio runs. In addition to that, we change our administrative reporting recommendations, like our radio codes are more accurately captured on how the job will be resolved, so forth, and paperwork.
Okay. Good.
Dude, did you see that? They didn't even answer your question. They're like, okay, thanks.
Are you impressed?
I was doing this. I was like, I forgot we were doing this podcast for a second. I was about to go to sleep. I was about to take a nap.
4 days, 4 times, you don't go back. No, you go back. It's 4 times. You go back every year. Like, listen, you're the first deputy commissioner. You need to look at your notes for that. There was no data in there. That should have just flew off our tongue. I don't care if you're eloquent or not. You're the first deputy commissioner. This is where's your opportunity to shine. Our department takes mental health extremely serious. Emotionally disturbs. We deal with emotionally disturbed people every day. 50% of the entire job is trained. So the odds are there's 2 officers in a patrol car. The odds are that 1 is trained, and we have more than 1 car respond to a emotionally disturbed person. So if there's 50% odds, if we have 4 responding, the odds just went up that the officers are trained to handle these matters. And they're being trained annually. It's a 4-day period of training. Very simple. But, that she had to read from the paper from that was ridiculous. You're the first deputy commissioner. That should have rolled right off your tongue. Embarrassing.
That was an embarrassment, honestly. And she was rambling. Like, they don't even know what she was talking. They literally skipped over her. She said what she said, and they're like, okay, yeah, let's get the next person up. Unbelievable. Dude, wait, my phone's blowing up over here, but someone just sent me something, and we're on the topic, so I got to bring this up because we're one back. So Transit Bureau, Michael Kemper, puts this out on Instagram. Not all fare evaders are criminals, but many criminals are fare evaders.
He's running for office?
He must have definitely did this before we put out that tweet about him and exposed that 98% of these people aren't getting stopped. He writes, no better example than the repeat offender confronted by these Brooklyn transit cops the other day, who, in addition to beating the subway fare, was carrying 2 blades and actively investigated for his ties to 3 prior cases of felony theft. How did they find the knife if he wasn't frisked and searched?
Yeah, consider that only 2% are frisked. Maybe he wants to go back and redo those numbers.
That was one of the 2%. I think you got it mixed up, Mike.
She's probably really upset, though, that he got arrested. 2%. I wanted 100%.
Not all of them are criminals, though. But
and again, you know what? But this is why the job thinks that we have confidential informants, because he's going to watch this podcast and say, look, he knew I was going to say this. We're all over it.
Sick, bro. Crazy. There was a lot of other things at this hearing. There was a ton of actual women of Jewish descent, like women that Jewish faith, not descent, of faith. And they were highly concerned. They said they didn't feel safe in New York City any longer. They're afraid to be out on the street. There's this crazy rhetoric going on. A lot of them were calling for stronger anti-Semitism laws. I don't agree with any of that. I said, if you want to bring down hate crimes, you enforce all crime. Hate crimes will rise as crime rise. You give people opportunity to do things, they're going to do things. They shouldn't have the opportunity to feel safe to commit any crime against anybody for whatever reason, whether they like you because they don't like you or because of your faith, whatever it may be. We need to restore order. But the majority of them said they wanted more cops and they wanted the police to be funded because they felt they did not see that presence and they didn't feel safe at the protests. They didn't feel safe to counter protest and they didn't feel safe to walk by. They feel that there are not enough cops on New York City streets. But there is one guy in particular that I think we should play. He's a protest monitor. And he's got a great testimony. And there was a lot of this here. So I just picked him out. There was a bunch of other people. I probably got 1 or 2 more videos, but I don't have them ready for the show. But I'll put them out on our Instagram and on social media. But this is a protest monitor. So what this kid does is he goes to protests to ensure the safety of the protesters. And he's a rebel rouser. He goes up to the cops. He gets their shield number, their badge number. He documents everything. He ensures that there's cameras around right prior to right when some professional agitators roll up who you've seen at every protest. And he's there. So he's like, oh, yeah, I know who those cops were. That was McCary and Dim. Here's their shield numbers. I already said this. So when we file the complaint, add this, and this to them. So I'll play this clip for you. It's the stage. Here we go.
Good afternoon. My name is Joshua J. Shaw. I'm a protest monitor with the ACLU. I'm a veteran and I'm also a public servant. During my time with the ACLU, it's become obvious to me that there is a clear and pervasive bias within the NYPD. It's a bias that is routinely demonstrated by their wildly different treatments towards protesters championing certain causes. More specifically, the NYPD employs their evident bias against leftist and progressive causes by using it as justification to violently beat, intimidate, and silence those they disagree with. We've seen this historically with the NYPD. They've proudly escorted Nazis and Klansmen alike through our city streets while simultaneously beating and dehumanizing civil rights activists. Unfortunately, this stark dichotomy still exists today, and it cannot be better exemplified than by the NYPD's treatment of the peaceful protests in opposition to the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Zionists and pro-Israel advocates have seemingly been granted unregulated authority to issue death threats, dox, and unleash violence on these protesters. All the while, the NYPD turns a blind eye to their crimes. And sadly, for those who call for a free Palestine, they are not awarded these same luxuries, and they must fear for their lives every time that they're brave enough to stand against fascists and their sympathizers. In the NYPD's campaign to silent dissent, the SRG has been the primary weapon in this arsenal, and that is exactly why it must be disbanded immediately. Additionally, the SRG must be disbanded because, quite frankly, it's ineffective. They don't scare us. Despite all of their resources, all of their posturing, despite all of their might, they have failed to silence us. And they will continue to fail to silence us because as long as there are oppressors, there will be those who are brave enough to stand in their way. I ask you to stop funding the SRG and reallocate our tax dollars towards initiatives that will actually help our city flourish, instead of wasting our money on something as useless, as ineffective, and as incompetent as the SRG and the NYPD. Thank you.
Defund the police, baby.
Yeah. Veteran of what? I mean, I'm a veteran. What is this kid a veteran of? Because he looks like he's about 19 years old. So how could he be a veteran? First of all,
ROTC high school. He was probably a general.
I challenge this kid. So he had a couple of GI Joes at home, and he thinks he's a veteran. This kid is definitely not a veteran. If he is, I'm telling you right now, I'm saying it here. I will completely just rescind my veteran status. That's absolutely ridiculous. That kid's not a veteran. God, I hope not. But he looks like he's 19 years old. First of all, and I'm sorry. That's just completely absurd. And it's funny what he said. He said the SRG is ineffective. They don't scare us. So they're ineffective in shutting you down. What are you saying? That it didn't even make sense. Oh, well,
yeah, I don't know when the SRG became the Death Star of like the evil empire. Like these people, they don't even know what that. I bet you this kid couldn't even pick out who's an SRG. Which one of these cops is an SRG, and they have a very distinct uniform. I don't even think he'd be able to tell you. They just blurt this out, and when he says is that they're ineffective, and the NYPD's budget should also be removed because they're also ineffective and incompetent. So why are you here?
Right. That's a good point. But it's funny, he said that they're ineffective and their posturing doesn't scare us. So basically what he's saying is, what he said is he's promoting violence. He said that we're peaceful, but you're not going to scare us. You're not going to shut us down. That's basically what he said. He was posturing in that monologue, saying that basically we'll be in opposition of SRG and the NYPD. To me, that is a presence of violence. Ironic when he says that these are peaceful protests. These kids don't even know what they're saying. And he has no idea what SRG is. He's only regurgitating what he heard from New York City Council because they talk about the SRG. They talk about SRG at the George Floyd riots. This kid was probably in middle school when those George Floyd riots were happening. Veteran my ass.
No, absolutely. Like I'm telling you, there was a ton of stuff like that. Like those are the after ones. Those are funny, man. Like that I'll listen to like when I'm working out. I'll like go through those and I'll wait to get like a funny one. But the whole thing's a joke. And that's my whole point is like I just think that when you look at this, you look at the people that are in city council. This kid is a perfect candidate for New York City Council. That kid is like he's like Lincoln Ressler's twin, his protege. Like that kid would fit right in with the people in city council right now. So you see them, they're supposed to be the oversight, and then you switch it to the NYPD, and Eric Adams' appointments, I mean, are a glaring failure. We could literally abuse them. I mean, we have clip after clip of them. But
that kid reminds me of Osei Che. His ideology is completely on par. Hey, we see it, kid. If you ever see this, we see a future for you. New York City Council.
No, I mean, I'm pretty sure this kid will be running at some point. I'm pretty sure.
Absolutely.
If I had to guess, you're gonna see this. You're gonna see this kid 100%. I mean, it all comes down to this, right? Leadership. I think we should end it with this one last clip. This is from about 2 months ago. It's about 2 months ago, and it just shows you the leader of New York City. It's one of my favorite clips of him, the illustrious Eric Adams. I mean, this is always going to be one of my favorite clips of him. You ready? This is the New York City that you live in. You ready for this one?
I've seen this 1,000 times. I love it.
I like to admit it, but I know you get on your knees and pray every night. Thank God Eric is the mayor of our city. You know that? You're able to ride your little bike safely through our city. No one is coming at you. You're able to hang out in the restaurant. You're able to enjoy your little restaurants. You're able to, I made your career. You get so many first page stories from me. You are so excited about covering me. You are so excited covering me. You don't know what to do. Okay.
Thank you.
And you know what? Go ahead.
He eats at his little restaurants all because of Eric Adams. He drives safely on his bike because of Eric Adams, and Eric Adams made his career. Made
it. And who learned that? Who learned me and I and me and I? Who learned that from him? Cass Daughtry.
A big, tall, doofy kid.
Yeah. Me, right?
Yeah.
Listen, that's his protege. He idolizes Eric Adams. He looks up to him. It's obvious because he talks just like him. But I hear a lot of me, very self-serving. I mean, I think Eric clearly shows some signs of narcissism. I mean, I made your career. Jeez, who are you? You're supposed to be a public servant. This is how you talk to people? Thank God you're the man. He made it sound like before Eric Adams, like this was just complete savagery in New York City. No one could sit down and have a meal. You couldn't ride your bike. It was just like Temple of Doom. I mean, if anything, Eric Adams, it's actually worse now that you're the mayor than when Mayor Bill de Blasio was in office. And he was a disaster train wreck. But he was even better than you are. And I mean, anybody challenges that, just look at the crime numbers. Look at the way the city appears on its surface, the way it looks below the surface. Just It's very simple. Of what was a better time in New York City? You know, was it the worst? Was it terrible or the worst? I mean, it wasn't good either one. But this is by far this is a whole new element. This is uncharted territory.
So who wins? Who wins this debate, right? It's not a debate, it's a public safety hearing, it's a budget hearing. But if you had to grade, who do you think comes out on top of these meetings? NYPD or New York City Council?
I hate to say it. I hate to say it. I can't stand the New York City Council. They're so far left. But I think that they just completely beat the police department up. Michael Kemper just completely pandered to their movement. He made it sound like he's defending himself. He was completely apologetic. Ed Caban sounded like he was getting deposed. He sounded like a cop that needed to refer to legal counsel. The deputy commissioner of legal matters is trying to play cleanup with his bullshit, and everybody could read right through it. The only two that did well and held their ground was Jeffrey Madry and LePetri. And honestly, I have no problem with the way LePetri acted. At some point, you know what? Like, this is ridiculous with the way they taught us. So I like that he showed some spine. You know, and I do think he's extremely intelligent. Even when I would go to CompStat and he would run the CompStats as the crime control strategies, I think he did a good job. I think he was always very detailed. And, you know, it's sad that he's being shut out. And at the same token, I think he should say, listen, if you don't want me, then I'm going to retire and move on. I'm sure LePetri is one of the few chiefs on this job that I think would thrive in the private sector, because most of these chiefs have no idea what it is to put their own finger on something. But I believe he's in a different class. And unfortunately, we haven't had the opportunity to see him shine. Jeffrey Madry's just a likable guy. He's just over time, he's been able to be stoic, but I don't think he has the same EQ that LePetri has. It's quite unfortunate.
Oh yeah, I say overwhelmingly, like when you look at this, you feel bad for the New York City Police Department. You like them, but if you really look at it, City Council absolutely destroyed them. What'd they talk about? Oh, the people we stop, we don't frisk. The people that we stop for crimes, we don't frisk. Not everybody's a criminal. You know, we light touch, right? And then you move over to, well, we're going to use AI and hammer our cops. We're going to redo our pursuit policy, even though we're forcing these guys to do pursuits when they know it's not smart, because they were all trained. They know that doing pursuits in New York City is a dumb thing to do. People are going to die. And actually, someone died very recently from a pursuit. I think while we were doing the podcast, somebody got killed. The last one of the last ones we did, a pedestrian got struck by someone they were chasing. I mean, these are things you don't want. These are things you don't want to see happen. But when you look at it overall, the New York City Police Department is pandering to the Marxists New York City Council. It's scary to watch, man. So any of you guys got the bug to run for city council, you're still living in the city, I highly suggest you do it. I really do. I mean, listen, is the money worth it? Probably not, but it would be fun as hell to sit down with these Marxists and just shut them down. Are you going to get anything passed? No, you're not. But it's time to go there, and it's time people get in there. I contemplated it. I'm not going to lie. I contemplated moving back and doing it. But, you know, I just, the seat that I would go for, it's kind of stupid. David Carr's in the seat. He's a Republican. He's soft. He's timid, but he votes the right way. He does. There would not be one vote that I would change that he's done. I haven't seen him do anything bad. So I'm like, why would I take his seat? It makes no sense, you know? And if there was like some socialist in there, then I would have moved back already and I'd be running. So, but it's just not the case. So, but like if you're in your district, you have some socialists, you have Tiffany Caban in your district, you have Lincoln Wrestler. I mean, get on. Just do it. Just do it. Do 2 years in there. Do 2 years and get out. Just do it. Just try to restore some balance in there. It's disgusting. And with the balance being put back in there, just out of sheer like just out of sheer whatever, the New York City Police Department will weigh out, and public safety will start to rise, and crime will go down. But it all starts with politics. It all starts with politics. It ends with politics. What's going on in New York City right now, the illegal immigrants, the rising crime, the crazy stuff that's happening on the subway, politically created crises, every single one of them, including the fact that there's not enough police officers on the street.
I absolutely have no aspirations to be a city council member. But if I was a city council member for a day, I'll go back to what I've been saying on this podcast. I don't believe in trying to win an argument with idiots. When it comes to idiots or people that I find that just complete wackos, their ideology, I don't try to win an argument. I let them believe they won the argument. But I would just test their logic just to hear idiotic responses. Okay, why do you think the response times are flawed? How do you think the police department should respond? And just test their logic. And you'll probably be surprised by the answers. What most of them will do is not answer the question. They'll just respond with another question because that's what they don't have solutions. Again, it's sad to see. It really is. It's sad that the police department is getting beat up by the New York City Council. I mean, these should be the professionals that know their job inside and out. This is an opportunity to shine. And it's just completely embarrassing. It really is. Ed Caban and Tiny Kinsella really have to decide, go back and say, you know what? Do we want to actually put on a presence and actually show that we have skin in the game? Or we just want to wear the title and just have Jeffrey Madry put the glue together, have LaPetri save us, have the Deputy Commissioner of Management save us? I mean, come on, have some pride. Have some pride. You're in an esteemed position. You're politically appointed. The argument has been that you are DEI hires. Show the world that you belong there. This is an opportunity. There's going to be more hearings, so you got another crack at it. This is absurd and abomination. It's embarrassing. But you know what? It's entertaining and it's fun for us.
Well said, my friend. So like we said, our old T-shirts still on sale in Myers. Links to that will be on the bottom of wherever you watch or listen. Links to our Instagram, our Twitter accounts, all that stuff, our website, it'll all be there. So check that out. Give us a like, follow, leave us some hate mail. It's always my fun thing. We might even read it out on here. We always appreciate that. And I mean, other than that, I really don't got much. We got a lot of more content coming at you. Chief McCarthy sprayed himself in the face with mace. We're going to be doing an episode on that. Like I said, we're going to be doing an episode about this Trulio pilot program. We're going to have some experts coming in talking about that as well. Anything you want to end with before we go, Eric?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So for our viewers out there, if you have a topic that you want discussed on this podcast, email the website, www.thefinestunfiltered.com. Let us know a topic that you're interested. Maybe there's something you want us to explore, expose on this podcast. Great opportunity. Maybe it's an educational moment. If you want to memorialize your career and you're in retirement, contact us and we have an opportunity for you to come on the show. That's it. Thank you, everyone. New York's Finest Unfiltered Filter Podcast.
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888-901 Blue. That's 888-901 Blue.